Sarah is a single mother of two who works tirelessly to put food on the table. One day, as she passes a factory dumpster, she stops in shock. Fresh fruit, sealed bread, unopened snacks, all headed for destruction. To the untrained eye, it's shocking. But inside the factory, it's routine. Heartbroken, she wonders, how can so much food go to waste when families like mine are struggling? Every single day, companies around the world destroy millions of dollars worth of perfectly edible food. And not because it's rotten, but because of rules. Rules about appearance, rules about branding, rules about profit. So, why destroy it all? And who really pays the price? Before we dive in, take a moment to subscribe and join our community. Hit that bell icon so you're always in the loop when we uncover stories like this. Did you know that over 30% of all the food we produce globally ends up wasted? And factories play a huge part in this mess. In the US alone, nearly 60 million tons of food gets thrown out every year. That's about $120 billion of food, around 40% of the country's entire food supply just gone. Crazy, right? So, what's really going on here, and why are we wasting so much food? Now let's zoom out for a second. But it's not just the food itself we're wasting. Think about the resources behind it. The water, the energy, and the effort. All of that just to end up in the trash. The hidden cost of perfect produce. Let's talk about beauty standards, not for people, but for food. It might sound strange, but the food industry has its own cosmetic rules that can be just as unforgiving as fashion magazines. Take fruits and vegetables, for example. In one US factory, workers line up with rulers to inspect cucumbers. If one is just over 6 inches, straight to the trash. Got a slight curve? Yep, trash again. Believe it or not, a whopping 15,000 pounds of cucumbers were tossed out. Why? Not because they were unsafe, not because they tasted bad, but simply because they were too bumpy to look good on a store shelf. Odd shapes, slight discoloration, or size differences. Straight to the trash. It's not just produce, though. Imagine a loaf of bread, discarded because it has a crack on the crust or isn't perfectly golden brown. And cookies? Some factories will throw them away if they're even 2 millimeters too thick or thin. Sounds ridiculous, right? These are products we'd happily eat at home, but they don't make the cut because they don't look picture perfect. This obsession with beauty is one of the leading causes of food waste in manufacturing. If you are against this ridiculous standard, then make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. The peril of plenty, when too much becomes too wasteful. Another big reason factories destroy food: overproduction. Then there's the guessing game of demand forecasting. In high-demand seasons like Thanksgiving or Diwali, factories ramp up production weeks ahead, anticipating huge demand. But here's the kicker: if the orders don't roll in as expected, all that extra food becomes surplus. And in many cases, surplus ends up in the dumpster. Here's a real-life example that'll make you shake your head. In 2019, a frozen dessert company in Canada found themselves in a sticky situation. Literally, they had 60,000 parfait cups ready to go after a big promotion with a retailer. But when the deal fell through, those perfectly good desserts weren't shipped, sold, or even donated. Instead, they were dumped. Not because they were spoiled or unsafe, just because they were unwanted. Doesn't that make you wonder how many other stories like this are out there? Sometimes, factories find it easier and cheaper to just get rid of the extra food instead of figuring out how to sell it. Flooding the market with discounted goods might lower prices, which companies see as a bigger risk to their profits than the waste itself. They fear that discounted or defective products could harm their reputation. Food is viewed less as a precious resource and more as a product on a shelf. Isn't that frustrating? Good food, bad packaging. How small mistakes lead to big food waste. Moving on to another culprit behind food waste: labeling and packaging mistakes. Sometimes, the smallest errors can lead to the biggest waste. Take labeling mistakes, for example. If a factory accidentally prints the wrong expiration date on a batch of products, that food often gets scrapped, even if it's perfectly fresh and safe to eat. Then there's packaging. Imagine a box of cereal with a bent corner or a jar of sauce with a scratched label. It might not seem like a big deal, but in the eyes of retailers and regulators, damaged packaging can mean a compromised product. And don't forget about compliance issues. A single mistake, like failing to include the necessary allergy warning, can make a whole shipment unsellable. Even if the food inside is flawless, it's tossed out because it doesn't meet strict regulatory standards. One wrong digit in the expiration date, a missing peanut warning, a skewed barcode. Any of these errors, even if the food inside is flawless, means the product must be destroyed. Why? Because the risk of lawsuits, recalls, or even a bad online review outweighs the cost of dumping it. Shocking, right? But it doesn't end here. We're about to reveal even more outrageous reasons behind this wasteful practice. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss an eye-opening video like this. The price of perfection. The real cost behind strict quality standards and brand image. Factories often follow some seriously strict rules when it comes to quality control. Many companies have zero-tolerance policies, which mean that a product is rejected if it doesn't match their exact standards, even something as small as a slightly off shape. Why so harsh? Part of it comes down to insurance and liability. Companies want to avoid any risk, no matter how small, that could lead to customer complaints or legal trouble. Let's not forget the brand's reputation. For companies, maintaining that perfect image is everything. Even a minor defect could make their products look cheap or unreliable, and they'd rather throw out the products than take the chance of damaging their brand. So, these super strict quality checks are a huge reason why tons of perfectly good food gets tossed out. But the real question is, does all this waste make sense just to save face? Here are a few shocking cases of how strict retail regulations result in significant food waste. Take Walmart, for example. To meet Walmart's supply chain requirements, suppliers must follow a long list of rules, from exact packing to the smallest labeling details. As a result, millions of dollars of produce are destroyed by suppliers. Walmart does make efforts to reduce waste within their stores, but what about the food that never even makes it that far? It's all about efficiency and keeping customers happy. But at what cost? Millions of dollars of food are wasted every year. Speaking of waste, it's not just produce that falls victim to these strict standards. Let's move to bread. Did you know that bread factories throw away up to 20% of their daily production, mostly because of cosmetic imperfections? Maybe the crust has a small crack, or the shape isn't uniform enough to meet the standards. Perfectly edible bread gone. Occasionally, technical problems, such as a loaf falling off the production line or improper packaging, lead to bread waste. And let's not forget overproduction. Factories bake more bread than they can sell in order to keep shelves stocked, even if it means throwing away the surplus later. And potato chips. Factories reject tons of potatoes every day. Imperfections like eyes, blemishes, odd shapes, or size deviations can affect slicing, cooking, and the final product's appearance. Major brands like Frito-Lay use specific potato varieties to ensure perfect frying and texture, rejecting any that don't meet their criteria. Shockingly, about 26% of potato waste comes from cosmetic reasons alone. These are still great potatoes, but they're not good enough for the conveyor belt. Even in the dairy industry, thousands of gallons of milk are dumped because they don't meet strict fat content requirements. Milk's price is determined by its butterfat percentage, but minor fluctuations are usually not a major concern. Milk is often mixed with other batches or used to make various dairy products rather than being dumped. But when the system becomes overloaded, farmers are forced to throw everything down the drain. The profit paradox: how destroying food can be more profitable than selling it. What if I told you that destroying this food actually makes these companies more money than selling it? Surprising, right? Here's the paradox. Sometimes destroying food actually makes companies more money than selling it. Sounds crazy, right? But it all boils down to redistribution economics. Think about it. Sorting, shipping, and redistributing imperfect food costs a lot. Often, it's just easier and cheaper to toss it. Plus, skipping discounts keeps the brand's image spotless. Nobody wants to see their favorite product on sale all the time, right? And here's a kicker. Businesses get tax write-offs for throwing away unsold goods. Yep, tax write-offs mean financial benefits. But wait, there's more. By pulling imperfect stuff off the shelves, companies create artificial scarcity. This keeps prices stable, because flooding the market with products at a discount would only lower prices and reduce profits. And don't forget labor. Sorting through all those rejected items takes time and money. Sometimes it costs more to handle the food than the food is actually worth. So, in many cases, food waste isn't a mistake. It's a full-on strategy. Shocking, but true. Beyond the plate, the environmental disaster of food waste. Have you ever wondered how food waste affects not just our plates, but the planet? The answers might shock you. Food waste accounts for a staggering 8% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. Yes, all that food waste is leading to the buildup of landfills and the release of toxic gases into the atmosphere. And the amount of resources required to produce, process, and transport food waste is unbelievable. Every year, around 1.4 billion hectares of farmland, which is bigger than the entire country of India, is used to grow food that never even gets eaten. And think about the water, energy, and hard work that goes into all of it, just disappearing into thin air. Then there's methane, a greenhouse gas that's way more dangerous than carbon dioxide. When food rots in landfills, it releases this nasty gas, making the problem way worse than most people realize. Think about all the packaging that gets tossed, the fuel burned to move the food around, and the endless hours of work that go into growing, harvesting, and delivering it. All of that effort was wasted just because the food didn't look perfect, or because supply and demand didn't match up. Food waste is a worldwide crisis, not just an issue. In a world where millions of people go hungry every night, is it not shocking that we throw away around 1/3 of the food we produce every year? All that wasted food adds up to a huge impact on climate change, pumping more greenhouse gases into the air. Each time food is wasted, so is the water that grew it, the energy that processed it, and the fuel that transported it, not to mention the packaging. All those resources gone in a blink. But beyond the emissions and landfill space lies a deeper tragedy. In a world where nearly 800 million people go to bed hungry, how can we keep throwing so much away? It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Most factories don't want to waste food, but the system is built that way. Until the economy changes, the dumpsters will stay full. Anonymous Quality Assurance. Inspector, if this opened your eyes, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone. Awareness is the first step toward change. Want to see how factory fires, packaging failures, or machine errors cause even more destruction? Subscribe to our channel, where we show you what really goes on behind the factory walls.